G'day everyone, Jason here from the Capricornia Chamber of Commerce, here with Phil Henry, and today we're joined with Peter Shonhan from Kennas as well, recording this one in a little room upstairs at Kennas, so we've got a bit of a view out behind us there, and of course you can all admire that from the other side of the camera. Phil, budget was just released last week, hence our location and our special guest today. What are your thoughts?
Well, it was very much a pre-election budget. I think that's well recognised, but we'll leave the politics out of it for today. What we're really interested in is what was in it for small business. So there's a few elements there that we've picked up, but we're here to talk to Peter, who's the expert on this sort of stuff. So Peter, give us your views about what's in it for small business in particular.
Yeah, Phil, thanks for having me on, you two. And budget this year was very much a basic, few specifically targeted areas in which the government wanted to do from a legislation point of view or a business incentive point of view. What we're seeing the most sort of traction or inquiry on is a couple of areas which include the technology business boost. So essentially, instead of the normal 100% tax deduction, if you invest in certain business technologies, cloud-based technologies, computers, point of sale systems, things like that. Essentially what the government's saying is, well, you can actually add 20% on top of it and we'll give you 120% tax deduction for any sort of investment in technology. So the detail hasn't really been nutted out completely, and there's always the questions you get, does this count, does this count, does this count? And I think we'll probably see something from the ATO come out pretty shortly, essentially explaining these are the things that we're going to allow as 120% tax deduction, these are the things that aren't going to be allowed. For example, one common question we get is the zero fees on your accounting software or your Microsoft fees and things like that. Well, it's actually technically a cloud-based subscription service, which in the EI said essentially they were saying that you can get a tax deduction for anything spent on technology. So we're not quite sure how far reaching that's going to go, or whether it's simply by purchasing an iPhone or a heap of computers. So it'll be interesting to see a detail.
But yeah, Peter, to clarify, that was effective like the day after budget night, wasn't it?
Exactly,
so
yep.
Probably what you want to do is, if you're not sure, hang on to your receipts for anything that you have spent since budget night.
Yeah, definitely, and you need to do that anyway, because if you're using it for a business tax deduction purpose, you'd want the 100%, if not the 120.
Of course, yeah, but I mean, I guess keep them to one side so you can clarify with your accountant if it's 100% or 120%.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Is that normal for them to be effective the day after?
Yeah, day of, usually.
Is
it?
Okay,
so
right,
a lot of sort of legislation usually says at 7:30 on budget night, this is what's going to happen.
Right, okay.
They don't usually backdate it, and they don't usually forward date it a month, because then people sort of
hold off.
Well, either they don't know detail, they go out tomorrow and spend it because they're all keen to go and do it and things like that. And we've seen a few emails. One person emailed me the next day, and I'm like, I haven't even read it yet, mate. So you sort of got to go in the detail, but in some instances, people were about to spend money, so they want to know straight away, hey, does this count or does this not count? So in recent times, it's been from 1st of July, but traditionally any sort of budgetary measure, and when we look at the instant asset write-off when that was brought in,
yes.
That was like as at that day. From tomorrow, if you're buying a car, you can get a full write-off. So yeah, it is pretty common. The other thing that they also decided to do 120% tax deduction on was the skilling people and the upskilling.
That's really good.
Once again, and I've read a bit of commentary saying, well, I haven't actually come out and said exactly what's in or what's out, but my basic understanding is it's usually from an RTO, so like your apprenticeships or your certificates and things like that they'll give you 120% tax deduction if you spend that on your employees. So if you want to come to Kennas and just get a bit of MYOB training or something like that, our basic understanding is that won't be deductible 120%. It's normally tax deductible. It has to be actually a registered training provider, registered training course. So once again, if you're thinking about doing it on a bigger scale, make sure you get clarification as to what's included and what's not included, because I think what the government's really aiming to do there is to boost the skills sector and the registered skills sector, and not just claim it on anything.
Gotcha.
It's one of the key issues that chambers around the state have been, around the country quite frankly, but certainly around the state. We've got our regional policy committees now, and skills was probably the number one item on that. So to the
Yeah.
extent that this will be crafted to actually meet those needs, that's really good stuff.
Whether 120% is really a big incentive, I know it's something we discussed before we started recording this.
Yeah.
Don't forget, that's only a tax deduction. So if you're in a company environment, if you spent $100 on a piece of equipment, you only save $25 tax or 25%. So really what you're doing, instead of saving $25, it's 120% of that. So it's not a hell of a lot more. It's an extra $5
That's
saving.
yeah.
So it's not as if it's not a hugely big incentive, but if you're doing a big spend, well then maybe it does push you over the line to do it, or that's a little bit extra tax deduction. So
I think it's probably the sort of thing where if you're planning on doing it but hadn't committed yet, maybe it's a bit of an extra bonus, but it's probably not enough of an incentive to generate a whole bunch of stuff that
It's like
wasn't
when you-
already going to be happening. Maybe I don't know.
maybe it's like when you get a lolly at the end of it. It's like, oh well, we'll give you a little bit extra for it, or something like that. I don't know.
It's like the toy in the Happy Meal.
yeah, exactly right.
Is that the name for the episode? The toy in the Happy Meal budget?
The other big one that we are finding, which is great for accountants, because obviously a lot of people do like a bit of a tax refund at the end of the year, and with the low and middle income tax offset, which was affectionately known as Leamington if you read news.com, that was extended out for an extra $420. So essentially what it's gone from is from $1,080 all the way up to $1,500. So it phases in and then it phases out. So just be a bit careful with that. If you earn over $120,000, there's no Leamington for you. And it phases out from essentially from $90,000 up to $120,000, and it phases in from $37,000 taxable income from there. So sometimes you get people that come in and say, oh, where's my low and middle income tax offset? But you've had tax losses for the year, or you haven't paid tax. Well, no, you don't get it. It's a tax offset. It's not a refundable one. It's if you pay tax, it will be reduced by this amount. So that's quite important, because we do get quite a few questions on that. And the other end of the scale is, hey, unfortunately, if you do earn over 120,000, there's not a lot of love in it for you either. So that can be a thing there as well.
Yeah, one to watch.
Couple of little things. Essentially, if you have if you've got to do a COVID test for your employment, so if you're in the mines or anything like that, the government's legislating you get a tax deduction for that. So if you are going and buying rat tests for whatever reason, even if you're an individual, not a business, make sure you keep your receipts for tax time.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a fairly common one. I know they're like $8 a pop, aren't they? Really, rat tests.
Oh,
They're not
if
cheap.
you're lucky, yeah.
Yeah.
Last time we bought a 5-packer was $75. I think it was working at $15 a piece. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not even that accurate.
Depends
sometimes.
where you go. Oh, don't tell me that. I just passed one last week.
Me too.
Yeah. But no, so they have made that tax deductible as well, which has been quite good. And they've been a bit of tinkering with the Medicare levy on the lower income earners. So once again, probably not really for business, but does help out sort of business savings and business spending more than anything from there too.
There is, I see, some support for mental health for business.
Yep.
Without any detail around it, unfortunately, but that's been recognised, and certainly the combination of COVID and everything else, really, a lot of business owners and managers have really suffered, so that's a good recognition.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of sort of professional bodies that we know of, like we're part of the chartered accountants, but CPAs like that. But also if you're a member of, for example, the Institute of Professional Engineers Association, they have complementary mental health that's in that as well, which I think is really great.
Yes.
And the government is putting money into those sort of programs, I think, which is fantastic as well.
So anything else that floated your boat there, Peter?
Well, they were the big ones that we are sort of, as I said, it wasn't too massive from there. But the other thing that we have been sort of, I guess, reminding clients about is that the instant asset write-off, and I quickly mentioned it, was extended out until the 30th of June 2023.
Yep.
So originally it was due to end this year.
Yeah.
It sort of got, obviously there's a lot of things happening in the world, and it got extended out in February, but a lot of people have sort of missed that little detail that it's gone out to 30th of June 2023. So there's been a few little things that have sort of changed without it going through a budget as such, and that was probably one of the bigger ones that we're doing.
The only problem will be trying to find a dual cab ute because nobody's got any stock.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, that's going to help you out if they said it was coming in December, because don't forget it has to be installed ready for use to be able to claim the tax deduction.
Yeah, that's
So
right. It's got to be delivered, doesn't it?
There's
Yeah.
no point paying 80 grand to the Toyota dealership, but it has to be actually delivered, ready for use.
That's
so
right.
you've got until June 2023 to do that.
Okay.
So if you order it now, you might get it in time.
Maybe.
Yeah.
No.
Sorry, Peter, I cut you off there.
Yeah,
You got another one? No.
Yeah, go.
No, that's all right. No, you had another one there?
Yeah, no, the other thing is that if you're a superannuation drawdown phase, when COVID hit, essentially what happened, and this was a big one in the budget this year, it wasn't really at businesses, but a lot of business owners are over 65 and are able to draw down on pensions and things. The minimums have been kept at a half of what they usually are. So minimum for a 65-year-old was 4%.
That's right.
That's now still going to stay at 2% of your total superannuation balance.
Yeah.
So what that's allowing people to do is keep more money into their superannuation funds if they don't have to draw it down. Obviously, tax savings are there, but it also means that you don't have to sell down your assets if you don't want to. So that's quite good. And there was a bit in there about the retirement saver for the houses and things like that as well. So there's a little bit there too.
Yeah.
But apart from that, a pretty quiet one.
No, well, thanks for going over it with us, Peter. Much appreciated, mate.
Hey, no dramas at all. And no, thanks for having me on.
No worries.
All right, so the other big news in the last week has been the government announcement on vaccine mandates. Phil, this has been a big one we've been talking about for some time.
I am very proud to say that this chamber was the first one in the state, I think, to come out and start agitating for the end of the mandate.
I believe we were.
We were
actually,
doing that in December, and we've kept it up ever since. Now, it only applies, it applies where it sort of really needs to, which is hospitality and entertainment, sporting events and all that sort of thing, which is the sector that's really done it tough under all of this. And it really had to change, had to end. We'd been ramping up our representations. We wrote to the Premier 2 weeks ago. So to the extent that we might have added to all of that, we'd like to claim that one, that we've been
absolutely
well done, guys.
agitating on your behalf, folk there in the hospitality industry. I've talked to a few of my mates in the last couple of days who run restaurants and cafes. And I was actually asked on ABC Radio this morning, what do you think their reaction is? And I was thinking it was probably somewhere between unbridled joy and sheer relief.
I was going to say relief would be a big one. Relief would be a big one.
I mean, they've all learnt to operate within the rules and have adapted their operating processes and all that sort of thing. But it's one more thing that they've had to think about every day when they open the doors. And to the extent that you can just make your working day simpler, that's a good thing. I was asked, do I think it's cost jobs and income? Of course it has. How much? Somebody will come up with a figure at some stage, but certainly we've got lots of anecdotal evidence around this part of the world in Capricornia.
We've got an accountant in the room. Peter, how much does it cost?
I'm not an economist, mate. No, essentially we've seen that quite a fair bit. There's two factors with the hospitality events industry. One is essentially one which can't be controlled, which is people having COVID and not being able to go out physically. And the second one has been the mandated vaccine, and we essentially saw that in our clients' figures in January. February is quiet in hospitality, anecdotally, after Christmas, leading into rates and things like that. And then, I was talking to the manager of a big club here, and they said he could have shot a cannon through the place at the start of January. So
it was hopeless, wasn't it? Everything was dead.
So an already struggling few months for the hospitality sector was just compounded by people having COVID and not being able to go out. So it's been great to see, and it's a credit to you guys for campaigning as well.
Indeed. But what's still a factor is lack of labour and skills around the place. Everybody's... it's because we've not had the backpackers in the country, which are a primary source of labour for that sector in particular. So we've still got that, and even if you can find somebody to come and work for you, there's no houses for them to live in. So we've really got some, as the policy wonks like to say, wicked problems. So yeah, but I mean, it's not to make light of, but at least we're starting to make some progress in addressing all of those.
It's also, it can be a good problem in a way to have, because everybody is doing very well considering what other parts of the country and also the world are doing because of COVID. So obviously we're booming, and skill shortage, everything like that. The flip side is obviously these fallbacks also.
That's right, and I was sort of, we're doing too well to the point where everything else just can't keep up, and it's created a new set of problems.
And don't underestimate the skilled workers issue. I mean, when COVID happened, I know we were talking in the chamber a bit. Essentially what happened was that everybody had to let their overseas or their 457 visa workers go home because there was no government support for them. And unfortunately it's hard to get those people back because they don't have the confidence to come back. So that will take time, I think.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, it's one of the bigger policy issues that this government or the next government or the one after that will need to deal with, is the level of our immigration intake, because you read any of the media, particularly from Sydney and Melbourne, and where it's even worse trying to find a flat or a house. That's obviously one of the factors that's fed all of that. So it'll be interesting to see which way the government jumps.
Yeah. I mean, one big issue and a big consideration that affects business is a degree of certainty.
Yep.
You know, if you could be reasonably sure of an outcome, that certainly makes life a lot easier. And obviously you've got to balance that off against public health issues, which does require some juggling. But something we were calling for was, the mandates, there was an 80% cut-off to reach a certain level, and after that it was just a bit of a mystery. 90% came and went and nothing happened.
Exactly.
And so I guess as a chamber we understand that there's a fair amount of unpredictability in our future, but having some framework and some guidelines that we can well, when we reach this milestone and hit that mark, this is what's going to happen,
and stick to it.
Quite right.
The biggest issue we're seeing, and I spoke to you guys before about with our clients, most the close contacts, and also people being out with COVID now, is that's the next biggest thing. We've had a few waves, and then obviously week after week. So we've got to manage that now too, amongst our clients and everything like that, as to how do we deal with having 3 out of 10 people out? How does that affect our business, especially if you've got fee earning people and things like that. So there's a lot of challenges out there.
Understood. All right. No, well, we'll extend our sympathies to you as well as to the people running cafes and restaurants.
No, I'm not saying about us. Our clients, mate, they're the ones that are affected, that's for sure. So.
And finally, we've got we're going to call this a polywaffle, our Meet the Candidates meeting. I'm sorry, I'm desperate for a chocolate now. Got our candidates meeting coming up very soon, Phil.
Yeah, so that's on Wednesday the 20th of April, 5:30 for 6 at the Dreamtime Centre. As always, you can register for that on our website, capricorniachamber.com.au, and scroll down to events. It will be $10 for members, $15 for non-members. Come along to that. We've got all of them signed up, I think.
And pretty much we've got
all the nominated ones.
All the nominated candidates, I believe, are confirmed. Now, if you want to ask a question, please email it to info at capricorniachamber.com.au in advance. Sorry, Phil, doing it at the top of you there. Shoot your questions through in advance. So we're going to want to have some order and structure around the night rather than a bit of a free-for-all. So email your questions through to info at capricorniachamber.com.au, and then each of the candidates will have an opportunity to answer these on the fly that evening.
We are having a professional adjudicator, facilitator, moderator. That's what I was after, as moderator.
I was thinking MC for a minute, but that's the wrong word too. Moderator.
That'll be you. So it promises to be good. Now, it's about business. We're a Chamber of Commerce, so your questions need to be about business, basically, or the economy a little bit more generally, but we're not going any broader than that.
So, I mean, our position is we don't necessarily favour one political party over the other. We support the candidates who support small business. So, after the 20th of April, we will find out which ones do and which ones are not so much.
So come along and be part of it. See you there.
All right, so that's all we have for today. Thank you, Phil, and thank you,
You're
Peter, for
welcome.
joining
Pleasure,
us.
no, thank you very much, Peter.
You're our very first special guest star. Do you realise that?
Really? Wow. Thank you
Yes.
very much. No, thanks for having me
I don't
on.
know whether we should be honoured or you should be honoured. One
I'm
of us.
the
All right.
honoured one. Don't worry
Everybody's
about
honoured.
that.
All right, thanks again, everyone. Don't
Yeah.
forget, hit capricorniachamber.com.au to register for the candidates meet up on the 20th of April, and we will talk to you again in the next one.
Bye.
Thank you.